Baking bread at home is like rediscovering a long-lost art. It's not just about the warm, comforting aroma wafting through the house or the golden crust that beckons from the oven. It's about empowerment, control, and creativity. The moment you decide to mix flour, water, yeast, and salt, you're not just following a recipe. You're embarking on a journey that transforms simple ingredients into something extraordinary. You're reclaiming the kitchen and taking charge of what goes into your body, all while saving a significant amount of money. Let's start with the basics. The ingredients are incredibly simple: flour, yeast, water, and salt. You can choose all-purpose flour or bread flour, but the latter is often preferable due to its higher protein content, which is essential for gluten development. Yeast is your magical ingredient, whether you go for active, dry, or instant. Water needs to be lukewarm, just the right temperature to coax the yeast into action. And salt? It's not just for flavor. It regulates yeast activity, ensuring your bread doesn't rise too quickly or too slowly. Optional ingredients like sugar, oil, or butter can enhance the flavor and texture, but they're not necessary. The beauty of homemade bread lies in its simplicity. Now let's walk through the process of making a classic white bread. You'll need 4 cups of flour, a packet of yeast, warm water, a tablespoon of sugar, a tablespoon of salt, and a couple of tablespoons of olive oil or melted butter if you're feeling indulgent. The first step is to activate the yeast. You mix the warm water with sugar, sprinkle the yeast on top, and let it sit for a few minutes until it becomes foamy. This is the moment you realize that you're not just baking, you're creating life. Next, combine the flour and salt in a large mixing bowl. Once the yeast is activated, pour the mixture into the flour and add the oil or butter. Stir until the dough starts to come together, and then it's time to knead. This part is crucial. Kneading develops the gluten, giving your bread its structure and elasticity. You can do this by hand on a floured surface for about 8 to 10 minutes, or you can use a stand mixer with a dough hook to save some time and effort. Once the dough is smooth and elastic, place it in a lightly oiled bowl, cover it with a damp cloth, and let it rise. This first rise is where the magic happens. The dough will double in size, which takes about an hour to an hour and a half. Patience is key here. When the dough has risen, punch it down to release the air, shape it into a loaf, and place it in a greased loaf pan. Cover it again, and let it rise a second time for about 30 to 45 minutes. While you wait, preheat your oven to 375 degrees. When the dough has risen again, it's time to bake. Slide that pan into the oven and let it work its magic for 25 to 30 minutes. The smell that fills your kitchen is nothing short of heavenly. When the bread is golden brown and sounds hollow when tapped on the bottom, it's done. Remove it from the pan and let it cool on a wire rack. This cooling period is essential. Cutting into the bread too soon can result in a gummy texture inside. Now, let's talk about some techniques to ensure your bread turns out perfectly every time. Proper kneading is essential for developing gluten, which gives your bread its structure. Don't rush the first and second rise. Allowing the dough to rise fully improves the texture and flavor. For a crusty, artisan-style bread, consider adding steam to your baking environment by placing a shallow pan of water on the oven floor. And remember, the internal temperature of your bread is a reliable indicator of doneness, 190 degrees for soft bread and up to 210 degrees for crusty varieties. One of the best parts of baking your own bread is the cost savings. A loaf of store-bought bread can range from $2 to $5, depending on the brand and quality. In contrast, a homemade loaf can cost under $1. A rough breakdown of costs shows that flour, yeast, salt, and even optional ingredients like oil or butter are significantly cheaper when bought in bulk. And if you're really looking to save, consider batch baking. Make multiple loaves at once and freeze them for later. Homemade bread freezes beautifully. Just slice it before freezing and take out what you need. Of course, not every loaf will be perfect, and that's okay. If you find your bread is dense, it might be due to under-kneading or insufficient rising time. Flat bread could indicate a lack of structure. Kneading longer or using bread flour can help. And if your bread doesn't rise at all, check your yeast. If it doesn't foam during activation, it might be old or the water too hot. Once you master the classic white bread, the world of possibilities opens up. You can experiment with whole wheat flour for a heartier loaf, mix in herbs or roasted garlic for added flavor, or incorporate sweet ingredients like honey or chocolate chips. The beauty of baking at home is that you have the freedom to create what you love, tailored to your taste and dietary needs. In conclusion, baking bread at home is not just a cost-effective way to enjoy fresh bread, it's a rewarding experience that connects you to the process of making food. It allows you to control the quality of what you eat, reduces waste, and enhances your culinary skills. Once you get the hang of it, you'll find yourself not just baking bread, but creating memories, sharing warmth, and filling your home with the kind of love that only comes from the kitchen. So, roll up your sleeves, embrace the flour, and let the adventure begin. Please subscribe and share. Laters.